Welcome to ET with GOTB. Well, 637 days later, she's back. Sam Kerr has made her long-awaited return. We discuss that and more. Let's get into it. I'm Rachel.
I'm Sophie.
And this is Extra Time with Girls on the Ball. You wanted to correct my stat, didn't you? My Sam Kerr stat.
Yes, because it's 634 days since she was in a Chelsea shirt. 637 days since she last appeared in the league. But then in the Chelsea shirt, yeah.
Okay.
And she scored her 99th goal on her 634 days ago.
You're right, 634 is so much less than 637. It's so much less impressive. Not. Anyway, perhaps... Well, I was going to say not too many upsets this weekend, but actually I think there were a few surprise results, some good performances, one or two absolute worldy goals. We are going to delve into all of that, but first, this is your weekly reminder to make sure you are subscribed wherever you're watching or wherever you're listening to this podcast, so you do not miss out on any episodes. Do drop some comments in the chat. We'd love to know what you thought of the games this weekend. Make sure you're following us across our socials. We're at Girls on the Ball on everything, and make sure you're subscribed to our Substack as well, where you've got both free and paid content available to you, and there is currently a deal. We're halfway through the month of September, so there is still currently a deal. If you do sign up, you will get a discount, so do go and have a look at that if you fancy it. I feel like you're going to hear a lot of creaking.
I was wondering if it was a drill.
Ghosty. No,
but it's the wind.
It's the wind.
It's literally a gale outside. We're looking at the sea right now,
the channel. It's very, very choppy.
Very, very, the waves are so big.
Absolutely. Now, if you are watching, you will see that my hair is wet, which means it's just been washed, which means we have to keep this, Sophie, short and sharp, because this...
I don't know what you're talking about. Why you blame me all the time?
This hair, there's an Irish word for you to learn, is going to start getting frizzier and frizzier as we go on. So we've got to keep it short and sharp, because otherwise we'll be terribly embarrassed. Okay, today's episode, as ever, we're going to look at the results, we're going to look at the table, we're going to look at some key pointers from the game. We'll do your player of the week. We'll do Sophie's standout moment as well, and we will talk through our team of the week also, okay? So your thinking cap is definitely on. This is why Sophie wears a hat, by the way, every episode. It's her thinking cap. And then, of course, we'll run through quickly the action in WSL 2, where I think they actually had more surprises this week, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, the Barclays WSL results look like this. West Ham 1, Arsenal 5. It was a DVD own goal. Monaghan, Blackstenius, Ford and Russo with the brace. Manchester City 2, Brighton 1. Kirby, Shaw and Hasegawa scoring. Manchester United 5, London City Lionesses 1. Letizia, Mallard with the brace. Riviere, Park and Paris on the score sheet. Aston Villa 1, Chelsea 3. Aggie Beaver-Jones. Missy Bo Kearns on goal. Kerr and Salmon. I had ABJ and MBK written down there. Leicester 1, Liverpool 0, Van Egmond with the goal, and Everton 0, Tottenham 2, Atanen and Tanberg with the goals there. I wrote all that down like out of my head. I didn't even look at the websites or anything. I remember all the goals.
You brilliant.
Yeah. I think I meant to pronounce it Artanen. Is that right?
I do feel like we've both been like non-stop footballing since Friday night.
Shocker.
No, yeah, but I know. But we watched the game. We went to West Ham on Friday night, watched the game again and most of the City game on Saturday. And then went to London City yesterday, watched the Everton game afterwards.
Yeah.
And have watched 3 games between us, 2 games between us this morning. So that's
the job. And yet we'll still probably be called out for getting something wrong. So
sorry.
We didn't need to tell them all of that information. Okay, it does mean that the Barclays WSL tables looks like this. United, Arsenal, Chelsea and Tottenham in that order are on 6 points. Everton City, Leicester below on 3 points. And at the bottom, Liverpool, West Ham and London City Lionesses have yet to get a point on the board. Okay, so West Ham 1, Arsenal 5. We're going to start there because we were at that game Friday night under the lights in the rain. And my key takeaways were an impressive West Ham start. You're kind of starting to see what they're about. It's something I've touched on in last season, and I feel like nobody listened to me. But you are seeing what they're trying to do. They're just, I guess, needing the personnel to get up to speed with it. Arsenal's ability to come back, to tweak at half-time, and also to break down solid defences. And then I just wrote down Mido and Russo because I thought both of them had a good game. So you want to touch on West Ham's performance?
Yeah, I think West Ham, I think the automatic reaction when you look at the scoreline is to say they're not doing very well, or, you can't really see what they're doing. I think that is a bit naive when you look at the first half performance. I thought they performed really well. You can tell their structure. Rhiannon Skinner made it 3 at the back. So in the first game, she played 4 at the back. Amber Tiziak came in to make it 3. It closed out the spaces. It kept, when you have a forward like Alessia Russo, who's so good at what she does, but maybe is a little less direct than, say, Estina Blackstenius, it kept her in front of them so they could close those spaces out. Across the team, they were all working well as a unit. They were stepping in. They've become really confident on the ball as well. They make those intricate passes, whereas probably previously you see them like win the ball and hoof it up the field. They're actually trying to play it out and set up moves. Their problem comes is when they break down in the final third, and the quality, either through a bit of rustiness, which I think is a problem with Martinez and SAE at the moment, or just in terms of like quality on the ball and creating those options in the final third. They're just falling apart there. So that's the next piece of the puzzle, I guess, for Rhiannon Skinner to build up and fix. And I think that will grow as the season goes on. Martinez certainly hasn't got her shooting boots on quite yet. And I think she'll grow into that role as well. The press of their front three was really, really good, especially in the first half. Renee Sleggers actually said that was why they changed things at halftime, because they could see that they were struggling to beat their first press. Rika Yueki, Martinez and Asai were just on the defenders immediately as soon as they got the ball. They gave them no time, no space. It was rushing the clearances out. It was rushing the passes. It was forcing them to go long and made everything a little bit scrappy. So that was, they were trying to figure out ways to beat that. I think that plus the 2 midfielders of Una Siren and Katrina Gori, whose work rate are ridiculous. Like both of them are very, very good. They were backing up the press every single time, and it just made a bit of a bank of a wall in front of Arsenal as they were trying to build their moves out. The change in the second half really, really helped. Bringing Stina Blackstenius on, dropping Alessia Russo into the 10. It allowed Alessia to do what she does so well in terms of dictating the play, stretching, with the defence with her runs in behind. Stina Blackstenius getting in behind and with her pace. She's so direct, and she's in the form of her career at the moment. I think she scored 7 in the last 8 or 8 in the last 9. I can't remember the stat, but something like that. So since the Champions League final, she's been on fire, and it just changed the game and the perspective of the game for Arsenal. And when you have Arsenal running at you all game with the energy that they have, and bringing on Olivia Smith, later on, you tire very easily. And I think that was probably part of it as well.
I think it's a running theme now that we're seeing in the league, and we saw in the Euros as well. I think teams who are trying to compete, I don't want to say break into the top 4 because they're not there yet, but to compete with those top 4 teams, is that tactically teams have improved and they know how to set up against the top 4 teams. A lot of the time it's just managing to sustain that type of game, that type of press and that type of intensity for 90 minutes. They're not quite there yet.
And quality at the end of it as well. In terms
the decision making,
yeah.
And we'll touch on that.
I think there was a couple of moments in the second half for West Ham where there was like a 5-minute spell before, towards the end, where they had some chances, but it was just that final ball. Gori rushed one. She had an opportunity to get in, to send her striker in and behind. Couldn't quite get it. I think it was Puibel as well who couldn't bring the ball down, and she was taking on Steph Catley. It was just that final moment of quality that they really need to work on.
Okay, moving across, I think a similar example to Manchester City versus Brighton, also playing on Friday night. Similarly, seeing Brighton absolutely take it to City, particularly in the first half, going 1-0 up, deservedly so, I think. And, going into half-time ahead, making City think. Understandably, City did have more of the possession. They did create a lot, but I think in terms of shots on target, they'll be disappointed. I think they had 8 shots on target and 8 shots off target. I think we're seeing, Bunny Shaw, Miedema looking rusty. I think what's good for Shaw is that she did get that goal. She'd had a number of chances, and I think just maybe her confidence in front of goal is not maybe quite there, and she maybe doesn't always make the right decision and hits it at the keeper, for example. But I think for both of them, I think it's just a case of getting the first goal.
They've not played a lot of football in the last 6-8 months or so. Even though Viv went to the Euros, they're still not
she didn't play one of the games.
But all of them haven't played a lot of football. It does take time to get your bearings back in front of goal, even for the best goal scorers. Bunny missed, as you said, a few they've missed a few, that will come. The more that they play together, the more they link up, the more times they have those opportunities.
I think as well, when you're on the back foot and you're losing and you're like, we need a bloody goal and we're creating and we're not getting them, it almost compounds that. Like, to be fair, like there were some shots that were deflected or whatever and there were good saves, for example, but from both Shaw and Mead, might be expecting them to score. So I think for Shaw to get the goal, it's a bit like Sam Kerr, getting that first goal off your back is important. And
it's a huge weight off your shoulders.
I think we'll start seeing more from Shaw. It's just Meadham's turn now to get that first goal, and she was scoring in pre-season. I think Brighton set up well against City. It doesn't hugely surprise me. I think Dario feels he knows how to set up against a Manchester City. He feels that they play a little bit like the City style and that he's inspired by it. So it doesn't hugely surprise me in that sense.
He is from the City group, isn't he? So.
Yeah, and I think as well, much like West Ham, it's just those moments, in key moments, those decision-making pieces, that small bit of quality that kind of has a player go from great from good to great, is the kind of turning point for a lot of these teams. And I think either getting in experienced players like a Fran Kirby who can show you what she can do in a very important moment, that she can make the right decision confidently in the box. She showed exactly what you get with her. But equally, City then, it's a little bit like their season, I think, just is taking them time to get into gear, took them time to get into gear in that game. And we saw the impact, something we discussed was the impact of Hasegawa being
she's got
freedom.
A different role this season, I think, a little bit. She's been given a bit more dynamism, more fluidity, and she's not having to kind of stay as the sixth. And we all knew, like, when she signed for City, she was known as an attacking midfielder. She wasn't known as a sixth. At West Ham, she showed those qualities, those attacking, getting into the box, scoring goals kind of quality. And kind of as a sixth, she's been brilliant as a six. She's been superb, and she did really well under Gareth Taylor, but kind of maybe nullified her attacking threats a little bit because she had more defensive responsibilities as well. Whereas I think now Jeglerts is very much of the mind of allowing her to get into the box more regularly again, get in front of goal and start. She had that big chance against Chelsea, didn't she, which she put wide, and then she scored the chance against Brighton in the second half. And I think you're starting to see her show those attacking tendencies again, which we know she's so good at. And that doesn't mean she isn't a good six, but she is fun to watch as well, and she's allowed to go forward.
Yeah, but it also perhaps gives more to a team when it's needed if she has that freedom to be, I guess, good where perhaps they might be lacking, if you like. Also worth pointing out that Carolyn and Fujino both made an appearance, which City fans will be delighted to see. They're back from injury. I think that's really going to help City. It's going to take the pressure off a little bit, but also just provides them that much needed depth that they've often lacked. So I think it also allowed. I know Benny started on the right, but it allowed Lauren Home to go back to the left as well. Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I think, is where she's most potent.
I think we're still seeing Jeglerts just tweaking a little bit and
figure
working out what is.
It's going to take time. It always takes time, and I think getting that first win. If they lost that game, I think when they went down and you're like, oh dear, I know it's early, but like if you lose 6 points in your first two games, you suddenly have a bit of pressure, especially if you're a Manchester City who are expected to be right up there. Yeah,
and as I said before, like, you don't have time in this league to figure stuff out. You're kind of building the plane as you fly, as we say so often. Okay, Manchester United 5, London City Lionesses 1. We went to this game. My key takeaways: important win for Manchester United, and important performance given their UWCL fixtures, the Champions League fixtures. They of course lost against Brann last week, which they'll be disappointed about. Also lost their boots, lost the game, maybe literally left their shooting boots at home, it seems. So for them to get the win in the manner that they did, knowing they've got the second leg and then have Arsenal, will be really important for them mindset wise. London City Lionesses could have and should have scored multiple goals in the first half. They created enough in the first half, but again, it's those decision making moments straight at the keeper. Like, they were creating opportunities, they were being dangerous, and they just putting it straight at Fallon Tullis-Joyce. And if you want to score against Man United and past her, it needs to be special. So which did come from Nikita Parrish. She did get the first home goal.
She did.
And it was a good goal, good header.
It was a good goal, and then Izzy Goodwin hit the bar, which would have been like, it was a move. Well, it was a set-up from her, deserved of a goal. She turned the defender really well, showed her physicality, and then just unfortunately hit it off the underside of the crossbar and bounced on the line, not over the line. And I think Manchester is vital from a Manchester United. From their perspective, first of all, they played pretty well. I think they took a bit of time to get into it in the first half. They didn't really maybe create all that many clear-cut chances, but by getting their goal early with the third minute penalty, and shout out to Maya Letizia, by the way, 100th appearance for the club. She is ridiculously consistent in that position, and to score on her 100th and then set up. She produced a peach of the pass for the Jade Riviere.
Oh, that Jade Riviere, go watch it back. That was an unbelievable goal.
Yeah. So they did enough in the first half. I think the worry for me about London City is how much they fall away. It was the same against Arsenal at the Emirates. They conceded, 2 in 2 minutes. Here they conceded 2 in 3 minutes, closer to half-time as well, like the restart as well. And before they knew it, it wasn't just 2-0, it was 4-0. And for a team that does have a lot of seasoned professionals in there, you have a backline of Kumagai and Kennedy. That's a very experienced backline. For them to switch off the way that they did, I think is kind of worrying for Jocelyn Pressure in terms of trying to build this team, and to ship 9 goals in the first 2 games just shows you're a bit leaky, and that can't continue to happen. And it's early days and they've got a lot of quality, but I just say there's a lot of work to do, I think.
Speaking of defensive issues, Millie Turner went off with what looked like a serious injury. She was in a lot of pain. She had to be stretchered off, which was a huge concern, because I feel like what we saw from Manchester United was a depth in attacking lineup, benching Turland. I remember saying to you, "Ooh, that's interesting." Maybe having one eye ahead of the next game against Bran. But then Melvin Mallard steps up and did what she did and scored a brace. So it's showing the depth of quality they have up front. Bringing Fridolina Rolfo on, having so much kind of attacking prowess in that situation. The fear, though, is the back line and the depth there, and I guess potentially losing Millie Turner could be a big blow.
They are 1 or 2 injuries away from a crisis, and that's
in the back.
In the back and probably the middle, if you think about it as well. They don't have a lot of, yes, they have some forward depth, but they don't have a lot of depth in those areas, especially defensively. Gabby George is just coming back from injury. She came on in the second half. She can play centre back as well, I guess. But there is an issue there in terms of depth, and especially when you're playing, your aim is to play in Europe, and that means you're going to be playing 2 games a week for most weeks. It's or playing every 3 days is going to be a problem if you don't have the squad depth. And I really hope Millie is okay, but it did look pretty serious, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's out for quite a bit of time, if that was anything to go by from what we saw. And then you think, well, what if, touch wood, it doesn't, but what if something happened to Dominique Janssen or May Letizia? And then they are really in a tough strait in terms of what they've done. And that's on the club. They haven't invested enough in the depth behind the scenes. They've let a lot of younger players go out on loan, which is understandable. They need that for their development. But it means that they're very, very short in those areas.
Yeah, it just feels a bit like what Gareth Taylor said about getting depth when they start getting into the Champions League, rather than having depth to get into the Champions League. I think you should be planning for the future, not waiting till it's there and then going, now what do we do?
Yeah. And they knew that they wanted European football. And if you want European football, I mean, as you said, we said it last year about Manchester City. If you're aiming to be the best in Europe, or amongst the best in Europe, you need to build a squad to be the best in Europe. You're not just automatically going to rock up and be the best. I'm
slightly concerned about your battery. Will that last? Because I don't want you losing that team of the week on me.
I will remember it, but it will last.
Okay. Next game. Aston Villa 1, Chelsea 3. Now, I don't really feel like this score reflects the game. I thought it was a super first half from Aston Villa. I thought they set up really well. I thought, my God, that door's going to blow off. I thought the press was excellent. I thought the intensity of the press was excellent. They were causing Chelsea all sorts of problems. Their ability to transition from back to front was really, really good. And again, you're seeing the kind of what the almost letdown is, if you like, is that final execution, that final pass. It was almost like they take just one too many touches in the box. And it's also down to good goalkeeping from Hannah Hampton as well. She made a number of key saves and picked up player of the match in that game, which I think tells you everything. I think sometimes we're a bit guilty, and I'm not going to say we are, but sometimes we can be a bit guilty generally of looking at a scoreline and thinking a team dominated or whatever that might be. And actually, I think credit to Aston Villa for the first half setup particularly.
Chelsea looked a bit all over the place structurally.
At the back especially, yeah. And the goal I thought came against...
as well. I thought because they played Kat Macario and Vicky Captain higher with Walsh behind, there just seemed to be so much space between them. It just seemed to be, I think they were almost operating as 2 10s.
But it also meant that the width of Aston Villa's back five allowed them to overlap in those areas, and that they just got caught out in that space.
And she switched to 4 at the back, where she'd been playing 3 against Manchester City, and Ellie Carpenter and Nick Charles just kept getting caught a bit too high. And when you have the wingers with the speed of Grant and someone like Salmon as well running at you and Kirsty Hansen, you're going to put yourself under pressure in those positions. And we know what Aston Villa under Natalia Arroyo want to do. They're direct with their attacking. They hit the wide spaces. They hit that speed on the flanks, and they try and catch you unawares. And so with that kind of very quick transitional moves, and I think that's where Chelsea kind of played into their hands.
Yeah, and I was surprised a little bit at how often Salmon found Grant on the right wing, and Chelsea just weren't reacting to it, which was a little bit of a surprise. But they weren't able to capitalise on those opportunities. Chelsea, I think, did get their first goal against the run of play. Ebony Salmon then scored an absolute peach of a goal. Again, go back and watch that if you haven't seen it. But I thought what changed the game for Chelsea was the substitutions at half-time. Erin Cuthbert came on, Alyssa Thompson came on to make her debut, which is great to see, and I thought made a real impact as well. And Baltimore came on for Niamh Charles, who had picked up what looked like a bad injury. She looked in a serious amount of pain and then somehow managed to play on until half-time. So hopefully it's one of those, where you get the pain initially when you roll your ankle, and then after a while you're like, oh, actually it's okay. I'm hoping it's that, and it's not that her adrenaline allowed her to play through pain and it's worse, because she did look really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I mean, we were watching it on the screen at London City, and we were like, she's done. It looked like a ligaments. Yeah. It was like,
but yeah, I just felt that depth for Chelsea at halftime, it meant that their mentality and their depth allowed them to turn the game, but then increase the tempo of the game. Whereas Villa had kind of gone out all guns blazing, hadn't capitalised, and then started to fade, and it was just that switch of momentum. And then, of course, what was amazing to see was Sam Kerr, as I said, coming back. Brilliant to see her come back.
Inevitable, isn't it?
Well,
what happened
the
next
goal
was
yeah. And to be honest, no, I don't think it's inevitable. I think coming back is amazing. I think it can take you time to find your feet. And it was so wonderful for her to, as we touched on with other players in previous games, to just shape that first goal, stress off your back. Like, she doesn't have to think about that.
I don't know. I think when you have a striker like Sam Kerr, there's some sort of magic involved in football. And
you say that, but she struggled when she first joined. So actually, all those things can play in your head.
On 99 goals for 634 days, yeah. I think when you're on the brink of scoring 100, it's written in the stars.
It's lovely. It's 2 things ticked off for her. That 3 things ticked off.
I mean, probably one of the scrappiest goals she scored.
Oh, she won't care. But like the comeback, the goal, and the 100th goal, all in the same game. And yeah, I just think 3-1 perhaps isn't as reflective as to how the game played out, but what mattered to Chelsea is 3 points on the board. Okay, this was probably one of the surprises of the weekend. Leicester 1, Liverpool 0. Now you want to touch on this because you were watching this and you were getting driven mad by the commentary, because you were impressed with how Leicester set up defensively. They were down as well. They had a red card. Shannon O'Brien got 2 yellows, was sent off in the 70-odd minute. So about
53rd.
I thought it was 70. Even longer than to go with 10 players. And you were...
They scored 2 minutes later.
Really impressed with their defensive setup, which didn't seem to be getting picked up.
Yeah, I think I think watching Leicester pretty regularly over the last 12 months, you've come to understand that they are becoming very, very comfortable without the ball. And they're very, very diligent in what they're doing, and their structure is very good. And I think if you think back to that game against Chelsea last December, where they had something like 28% possession or something, and managed to get that goal on the transition of Chelsea, and then defended for their lives and almost came away with a win. And they are so well drilled in that aspect of the game, and you can tell it's been built up over the last year. They're very comfortable with only registering, 30 or 35%.
They're happy for the opposition to have the ball.
Yeah, and they were very comfortable with Liverpool having the ball up until, the final third. And then as soon as Liverpool, on the occasions that they broke into the final third, they just packed the box. So it meant that Liverpool's shots were either, immediately blocked, or they were coming from further out, which they never really troubled Janina Leipzig all that much. I think they registered 3 shots on target the whole game. So, yeah, they were very, very comfortable. They're very well drilled. Where they fall down is that they need that hold-up play when they're hitting in the transition. Someone, who's that traditional number 9 who can hold up a ball properly. They've got a lot of wingers playing in the centre-forward position at the moment, and they want to turn and run, as wingers tend to do. Whereas I think, they need someone tall. They need players, but they need a centre-forward to hold up that ball and really for the wingers to play off them.
What was frustrating you, though, was that commentators were just deciding that Leicester couldn't get a hold of the ball and didn't have a sniff of the game. And when they couldn't remember the last time a home team had less than 30% possession. And it's like they did that at least 4 times last season. I've seen West Ham do it as well.
No, but I sent you the list from the data. And they, last season they had an average possession of 35%, very low. But the end of their season, the final part of the campaign, they were really quite productive with it.
Yeah.
So they're very comfortable with that side of the game. I think Liverpool were just, thinking that they could dominate the ball, and they just were like, well, Leicester will make a mistake and we can pounce on that, without actually being really proactive and creating anything.
So that's what I was going to ask you. Again, this is another game they had in the first half, especially against Everton last weekend, where they dominated possession. They were in and around the final third. And to be fair, against Everton, they probably created an awful lot more.
They were much more productive against Everton.
They just lacked productivity against a team that realistically they were should very be putting goals
static.
Away.
I don't know why Kerry Holland didn't start. She added a little bit of energy in the second half, although Leicester were much better in the second half in terms of pressing a bit higher up the pitch and kind of really aggravating the Liverpool back line. So they were having more joy in that without having much of the ball. I think the goal, the defending is just non-existent, to be perfectly frank.
Ball watching.
They'd just gone down. O'Brien got sent off. The poor co-commentator literally just said, I expect Liverpool to go all out here. And then Leicester break up the field. It's Cayman with the cross in. And Van Egmond just literally drifts past everyone. They're all watching the ball. And they're not paying any attention to the player coming in, and she has the easiest header in the world to send it home. And then they have a lead to defend, and that gives them something to hold on to.
And they're down to 10, so they're defending even more resolutely.
It helped that, I guess, that an attacker got sent off. If you're going to have a player sent off, they had, you can keep your structure quite rigid because of that, especially if you're ahead, you're not chasing a game. So that helped them. But I thought it was a really good performance from them in terms of that out of possession stuff.
And is it perhaps an assumption from Liverpool that they could bring in Gareth Taylor and it would just simply be implementing his style onto this team, when really has this team been built for this style?
No, he hasn't had the transfer window, and I think
you need a plan B?
Yes, you do. But and I think that is the historical problem with Gareth Taylor, is that he doesn't have a plan B when things aren't going well. I think, to be fair to him, he needs windows. He came in halfway through. He came in late in August.
And obviously Liverpool had the purse strings very tight anyway.
Yeah, so it's going to take him time to build a squad
and
in
to
his
prise
image.
those purse strings open.
But we've given that to Rhiannon Skinner and the likes. You need 3, 4, 5 windows to build the squad that you want. So I give that to him. But I do think it was frustrating, probably for Liverpool fans, to see how much lack of movement there was in the final third.
They lacked teeth. They lacked that ruthless edge.
They just weren't moving for the ball, and they were just so static in their in their lines when they had the ball, and they were just they registered a lot of passes, but they were passing from side to side and backwards a lot of the time.
Wasn't it 3 shots on target?
Yeah, 1 in the second half.
Yeah, not great.
So it's
Well, the last game to touch on is, again, maybe another little bit of a surprise. It's Everton 0, Tottenham 2. What a difference from last week. I think Tottenham and Martin Ho showed how they can learn and implement quite quickly. And I think he's an example of a coach who will have a style he wants to play, but will also be willing to adapt to suit the opponent. They were much more creative and aggressive. I think they saw that Everton had a slow start last week and decided they were going to try and capitalise on that this week. You could see that. I thought Everton were just lacking a little bit, particularly again in the first half. And what was funny was the changes that were made last time in midfield that really changed the game. I think he started with, and it didn't seem to have the impact that he had last week. It was almost a bit of a weakness in that area. They had, I think, 0 shots on target, which is surprising. Now they were looking creative. They were getting up the field at times, but nothing of kind of too much worth, I think. And I think, a good first goal, but the second goal, I just blew my mind a little bit.
I think Tottenham's press was on the whole game, and that's something that Martin Ho has brought in quite quickly, I think, is that press, and it's Bethany England's press on the defender that forces the mistake. But anything from that point onwards is just pure quality from Katinka Tamberg.
For Tamberg to have the wherewithal in that kind of situation, she had very little time to think. Bethany England had kind of forced possession. It kind of trickled out, if you like. For her to then be able to take that first shot on target, perfect distance, to spot the keeper off her line. And to be fair, look, to fair to Courtney Brosnan, she's not expecting a shot at this moment. They're playing out from the back there, almost at the halfway line. She's up her box. She's expecting, if anything, a ball back from a defender, not a snapshot from 40 yards out. So I don't really lay too much blame on her, and I think she did actually make a number of saves, particularly in the first half, because Spurs were kind of on top. So yeah, I think Everton will be disappointed that they weren't able to have that kind of turnaround that they did against Liverpool. And I think perhaps we were a little bit blinded somewhat by the scoreline against Liverpool, because yes, there was that wonderful hat trick, but those 3 shots were the 3 that she had on target, if you know what I mean. So while they scored 4 goals, I'm not sure they were as creative as maybe the scoreline alluded to, and I think that's something they're going to need to look at. I think when Kelly Gago came on, she changed the game. She brought a real energy and a real passion. There was a point where she won a corner and it was like she'd scored a goal, that kind of way, and sometimes you need a little bit of that injection. But they'll be disappointed not to win their first game of Goodison.
Yeah, I think it's a problem with teams across the board, and we've said it about London City, and teams that have had massive turnover, it does take a little bit of time for them to settle and to figure out the way that they press, the way that they work together. It's going to be a work in progress. I think for Everton, they're going to be fine. Brian Sorensen is an astute enough manager to work it out, but there are going to be games like this where he gets outdone by Martin Ho and vice versa. It's going to be a really interesting season in that middle pack, I think.
Yeah, I think what can be frustrating, and maybe it's not so much frustrating, but when they are playing the top teams are going to come at you, which means there's going to be space in behind, and if you can get in behind, you're going to have potentially more opportunities to have shots on goal, versus teams mid-pack who aren't going to maybe play as expansive all the time, and they will be a little bit more protective defensively, which then it doesn't allow you to be perhaps as creative as you might be against a team like an Arsenal or a City who are going to come at you, or a Chelsea in kind of with the whole team almost. Do you know what I mean? So on those counters, you might be able to have a bit more of an impact than perhaps if you're playing a Leicester who are going to defend very diligently. But yeah, I do think that they're good friends, aren't they, Martin and Brian?
Yeah, they know each other.
I'm quite intrigued.
So no, but I think it's going to be a really interesting tactical battles in that middle pack for sure, because they're not having to bank up like they do against, or not even bank up, but you're not having to go three at the back against Tottenham, like you would probably against Arsenal or whatever. So it's giving you a little more opportunity to flex your muscles, maybe.
Well, I didn't do much flexing this time around, Everton, and I was rooting for you. Okay, it's game 2. Calm down, Rachel. Okay, let's move on to your player of the week, please.
I'm going to go with Russo. Alessia Russo. I just thought her performance against West Ham was a proof of why she is one of the elite forwards in the world. I know people don't always think she's the most productive, but she's so much more than her goals, and then she scores that wicked goal, the rocket, Russo rocket, which, is brilliant. But I think she adds so much to Arsenal's game. They are set up, their attack is set up around what she does. She's so integral to it. The way that she activates the press, her work rate, the way that she stretches the play. She was running to the right to support. She was involved in that build-up to the equaliser for Marnham. She was influential in that. She was just, and then when she dropped deeper into the 10, she was just pulling the strings with her running and her passing. And then, to cap it off with 2 goals and an assist, I think was absolute quality.
It was funny because we were talking after about the performance of Beth Mead and the performance of Russo, and I think the commentators might have said it as well. If it wasn't for Russo, Beth Mead probably would have gotten player of the match. But because Russo played so well in 2 positions, you can't help but give it to her. Okay, now a standout moment of the week, please.
I'm going to go... I'm torn because Tandberg's goal was brilliant, but I think it has to go to Sam Kerr just because the emotion of the moment, the 100th goal, that's ridiculous. To do that in a Chelsea shirt. She was very sweet afterwards. She was like, I never dreamed that when I signed for the club I would get 100 goals and that it will stay with her forever. So I think that's a special moment.
And who says football isn't romantic? Okay, quickly, team of the week before your battery goes.
So Hannah Hampton in goal. Then we've got Jade Riviere at right back. Superb goal. Letizier at centre back. Bure for Leicester at centre back as well. Was superb. Left back, Sandberg. I thought she had a storming game down that left side for Man United. Yu Hasegawa in the 6 as well. Then Olivia McLaughlin. I thought she was superb. She proved why they needed her on deadline day. I think she's young, she's still developing, but she'll get in. She is an absolute quality player. Alessia Russo alongside her. I've dropped her deep for this one.
Fair.
Beth Mead out on the right, Mallard up front, and Tandberg on the left. Or the Ugo switch those 2.
Very good, very good. Thank you for that. Enjoyed that. I think that's a pretty fair team. Do let us know who would have made your team of the week. Always love to hear that from you guys. Okay, moving on quickly to WSL 2. Durham 1, Charlton 2, Crystal Palace 4, Southampton 4, Ipswich 0 and Nottingham 1, the battle of the promoted sides.
History making for Nottingham Forest.
Newcastle 1, Sheffield 1, Sunderland 1, Birmingham 1, and Bristol City 2, Portsmouth 0. So a couple of surprising results in there. That 4-4 draw sounds absolutely bonkers. Newcastle drawing with Sheffield is a big surprise as well, I think.
Yeah, and it was like an 85th minute equaliser from Newcastle.
Wow.
Or 83rd minute. I think the other one is Charlton are the only team now to have a 100% record.
Well, you've just ruined my next point because the table looks like this. Charlton stand alone on top with 2 wins from 2 and 6 points. The 100% record. Southampton, Birmingham, Sunderland and Newcastle are below on 4 points. And down the bottom, Portsmouth and Ipswich Town are yet to pick up a point. They are on 0. Sophie, do we have any other business you'd like to touch on? No?
Don't think so.
Just the 6 matches? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so for us coming up, we are going to be heading to Manchester United versus Brann at LSV on Thursday. They're, of course, 1-0 down, so a big game for them in order to get into the Champions League group stages, or whatever it's called now, league. Everton take on London City Lionesses on Friday night at Goodison Park. We will be there. And Manchester United then take on Arsenal again at LSV on the Sunday. So plenty for United to...
Yeah. Basing ourselves up in the northwest for next week.
We are. We're going to be up in Manchester. Looking forward to it. That is everything from us this week. Thank you for everyone who sent in questions and left us comments. Always nice to hear from you. Do it again if you'd like to. We'd like to hear from you again. Otherwise, we will chat to you very soon.